So I've learned if I stand here, the sermon feels shorter. There it feels longer. So I'm going to give the impression, because that was the idea of giving a shorter teaching today. So let me just apologize in advance. Just very glad to be able to be together on Yontif to be here today. I'd like to talk about the Seder plate, because we still have another Seder this evening. Is that correct? Okay, just checking. So the origins of the Seder plate are actually really pretty simple. A couple thousand years ago, when the Seder as we know it was developed in Roman times, and they would have their festive and fancy meals lying down on their side on like kind of a mattress. And so each person got all of their food on one big plate, so they didn't have to get up to get more food. And after, the Romans, by the way, after about 6 or 7 cups of wine, which was kind of their Seder, they couldn't get up. Right, so the idea of the Seder plate kind of imitated what the Romans were doing, and everyone got their own plate of food, and it had everything on it, and it was very simple. But we as Jews cannot keep things simple. But that's actually part of our charm, and I think it's part of what makes us interesting. Rabbi Dr. Moshe Idel, who is a professor of Kabbalah at Hebrew University and at the Hartman Institute, he has this idea that Judaism survived as something interesting and not just as a series of rituals, because what he calls the re-arcanization of Jewish thought. And it's from the word arcane. Arcane means mysterious and deep. And so what he said is that a lot of the Torah is actually fairly simple. And if it had stayed simple, no one would find it interesting anymore, and it would have dropped out. It would have just been a series of do's and don'ts, and it really would not have mattered to people over time. He said that the rabbis and also the Kabbalists made things weird again on purpose. Right? Took something simple and made it weirder than it seemed, which is what Austin, Texas used to be. And now it's not weird anymore, which is why Austin is no longer fun. If you're from there, I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Food trucks don't paper over your issues. Anyway, I digress. The Seder plate became an opportunity for the Kabbalists to say that there's actually something much more interesting going on. And so Rabbi Chaim Cohn, in the 1600s, quoting Rabbi Isaac Luria, who was one of the founders of Kabbalah, I'm not going to go into the entire teaching here because it would take way too long, but what he said is that if you take the 3 matzahs and you take the 6 items on the Seder plate, and then you add horseradish, you get 10. And that's to imitate the sefirot, the Kabbalistic system of God's emanations, a way of connecting to God. So the 3 mitzvot would be chokhmah, bina, and da'at, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then each of these 6 things on the Seder plate stand for things like chesed and gevura, kindness and compassion versus strength, tiferet, which is splendor. And what he did realize, though, is that only gave him 9, and there are 10 emanations, so they added a piece of horseradish too. That's the beauty of Judaism, is you get to make stuff up a little bit. A lot. But what the purpose of the sefirot are, and I think that this is really the message of Pesach, and you'll apologize for me giving such a long setup to the Seder plate issue, is that what they saw as the Seder plate was an opportunity to balance your emotions, to balance your reaction to the world. That sometimes you have to act with kindness, but sometimes just acting with kindness is not right for the person, and it could be harmful for you as well. Sometimes you have to act with strength, But sometimes that can be harmful to the other person. Sometimes it can be harmful to you. Finding the right balance of when to be kind, when to be strong, how to do it, that's the goal of not just Pesach, but how do you find a way to live in harmony in your life? Are you going to live just by anger, or are you going to find a way to have some balance in your life? So what I love is that they looked at the Seder plate, and for the Romans, it was just an opportunity to eat and to drink. The Epicureans of the time said, eat today, for tomorrow we die. Their Seder plate was really just an opportunity to eat and drink and not really think beyond what it meant. What I love is that the Kabbalists looked at the very same Seder plate and said, this is a reminder of how to live in balance, how to live in goodness, how to live in kindness, which is ultimately what Pesach is about. So at your Seder today, look at the Seder plate and think about what parts of your life are just completely out of balance. What reactions of yours have been out of balance and have not been skillful or helpful, and to think about during the rest of Pesach how to bring the rest of your life into harmony. Chag Sameach.